So now we're going to talk with you guys about loan milestones. And this is a term I think that you guys brought to us. And what's the first milestone that somebody should know about when buying a house?
Well, one of the beautiful things about the American Financial Network is we have the privilege of having an actual setup department. When the agent has a receipted contract, they deliver it to the loan officer. The loan officer then coordinates with our setup department, in which we will receive the actual contract. We'll order title. We'll do all of the necessary order routes to include VOEs, Social Security verifications, 4506T, which are the IRS verifications.
So VOEs are?
Verifications of employment.
Okay.
We will also ensure that we have all of the necessary documents to get into underwriting, which are, your ID, your Social Security cards, hazard insurance, and all the other little necessary required RESPA disclosures. Once the setup department has ordered all of the required necessary documents, we hand it over to the actual processor. The processor with the loan officer will review income to ensure that we have all of the necessary the fields filled out, that we make all of the allocations for write-offs, for tax deductions, all that good stuff.
Okay.
In addition to that, what we're also going to do is we're going to ensure that we have all of the required forms that are required for FHA loans, for VA loans, or for conventional loans. So the processor has approved the file and said, okay, this file is ready to go to be considered for a loan. We submit the file to underwriting. At this stage, we pretty much have all of the documents ready to go so that an underwriter can make a true decision on the file. They can review the income, they can review paycheck stubs, they can determine year-to-date income, they can determine previous income, and they can go ahead and give the file true consideration for being approved for a loan.
So what is it realistically from the time you get a contract to the time you get to close? How long should that take?
So the file should go to set up. From the setup department, it should spend at least a day or two. Mm-hmm. After that, it should go to the processor right at about day 2 or day 3. Once the processor has approved it, it's ready to go. Then it goes to the underwriter, and that's usually around day 3 or 4. Day 3 or 4, the underwriter's approving the file. They're going to make a determination. Okay, this file is approved, and they'll receive a conditional loan approval, or it will get suspended because something didn't fit the criteria. And that's typically happening around day 4 or 5. And we do this strategically so that in the event that a file becomes suspended, you're still at day 4 or 5, no more than 6, so that we can communicate that information back to the agent, back to the borrower, and say, hey, your file didn't pass underwriting because of this. Whatever that reason is, you're still in your option period. Now you can exercise your right to cancel the contract and go get your earnest money back.
At this point, the underwriter is going to give the processor a list of conditions. There's going to be 2 different types of conditions. One's going to be prior to funding, which means prior to us being able to release the funds to title. And then one is going to be called prior to docs. So before we can actually prepare all of the legal documents that are going to be needed by title, we have to actually go through and satisfy conditions. Once we get these document requests, we go ahead and communicate to the borrower that we're going to need to get these from them. So we'll send them a list of document requests. Anything that's left pending will be received at this point, and we'll go from there and resubmit those into the underwriter. So basically at that point, we're hoping for the clear to close after the first submission into underwriting. If for whatever reason the documentation that was provided brings up further questions, there may be another trip through underwriting before we get the clear to close. But once we reach the clear to close point, that tells us that all of the prior to docs conditions have been satisfied and we're now ready to move to the doc department. At that point, we will send our file into the closers. The closers will start drafting up all of the documentation and preparing it to be released to the attorneys. The attorneys take the file, they go through everything, they balance all the numbers, and then they prepare what's called a HUD settlement statement. On the HUD settlement statement, it's going to list all of the fees associated with the transaction, closing costs, down payment, and basically all of the legalities of the contract are going to be verified by a third-party independent attorney. At that point, once they balance the HUD, they'll send it back to the lender. We'll go ahead and we'll approve the HUD. Once we approve the HUD, documents get released to the title company with the closing instructions. And at that point, we are prepared to actually go and start signing at title.
Awesome. Which leads us to the last milestone, which is, of course, closing.
Which is, of course, closing.
Closing at the home, yeah.